Okay, continuing on here. Let's talk about fiber. Now that we're done with the unpleasant stuff, let's talk about fiber, which saves the day. When I talked about this at my meeting on Monday night at the Webster Eats to Live meeting, I mentioned that as I was reading about this, it got me to thinking about Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers. And in the Two Towers, Gandalf mentioned, look for me on the morning of the fifth day at sunrise. I'll come over the hill. And sure enough, they were fighting at Helm's Deep. You had all the good guys. The army was fighting. They were fighting the orcs, the bad guys, and the battle was horrible, and the good guys were losing. And the morning of the fifth day, the sun comes up, and over the hill comes Gandalf with the army of a fresh army of elves behind him. And in a way, that's kind of what high fiber does for us. It comes to our rescue, guys, and it's like Gandalf and the elves. And we need to value fiber. We really need to value it. And when I was reading about fiber, it got me to thinking about Dr. Michael Clapper. I know you all know his name, Dr. Michael Clapper. He's another one of my heroes. I really adore listening to Dr. Michael Clapper. And he mentions this often. I've heard this in more than one of his presentations and in his interviews. He said, when I was in medical school, I was reading one of my medical textbooks and I got to this particular process of the body. And he said, it blew me away, the brilliance of our bodies and how our bodies can take care of us. And I think he was reading at the time about the endothelial cells and the lining and how, they protect us. And he said, I literally put my textbook down and I applauded the body. He said, I was just clapping for the brilliance of our body. And when I was reading about fiber, it kind of had the same effect on me. It didn't make me want to start clapping, but it kind of got me teared up a little bit. When we think about how amazing fiber is for us. And so that's what I want to talk about now, okay? We're off of the bad stuff and we're on to the good stuff. So officially, there are two forms of fiber that we need to be consuming every day: soluble and insoluble. Fiber, along with starch, are both considered complex carbohydrates, which is the good kind of carbs. They're absorbed slowly, and they do not spike your glucose levels. Simple carbs, on the other hand, that's a totally different topic here. Simple carbs are absorbed quickly into your system. They spike your glucose. They can cause all kinds of other mischief. Now, most of y'all know when you give a child or you give a little birthday party full of children, Kool-Aid and cupcakes, what happens to these kids? Their glucose is spiked, and next thing you know, they're bouncing off the walls. That is what simple sugars will do to us. They spike our glucose, and they send us through the roof, and then what happens to us? They drop us, boing, down to the ground. And they dump us there on the ground, and then we're like, ugh. Simple carbs are found where? They're found in white bread products, for example, heavily milled flours instead of whole grain flours. They're found in white pastas. They're found in pastries. They're found in table sugar. They're found in anything that says high fructose corn syrup. They're found in fruit juice concentrates. They're found in soft drinks. They're found in syrups. They're found in, unfortunately, honey. Now, you're probably saying right now, honey is a whole food. Honey is okay. Well, vegans don't eat honey. And people who are whole food plant-based tend to shy away from honey, but for different reasons. There are three different kinds of vegans, so let me just go ahead and kind of take a little side road here. There are people who become a vegan for ethical and moral reasons. Ethical reasons meaning for the animals. So those people do not consume honey. Thank you. Shut off again. I am freezing in here right now, but I don't want to put my coat on because it's covered in cat hair, and I like this sweater. So I'm not putting my coat on right now. I'm just freezing. People who are vegan do not eat honey because the production of honey involves bees, and bees are animals, and that is exploitation of animals. So they avoid honey for ethical reasons because of animals. Some people are environmental, they're vegans for environmental reasons. And so now they probably don't have an issue with well, yes, they do, because when you spray, you kill bees right along when you're killing mosquitoes and things like that, and killing any insects around your house or whatever. You're also killing bees. And then you have vegans that are because of health reasons. Okay, so you have three different kinds of vegans. And so for me, for being whole food plant-based, I definitely have come to appreciate more and understand more the environmental issues and the ethical issues, animal abuse issues. They were not my original reason for becoming nutrient dense, plant rich, but I've become more sensitive to those things. But honey, for somebody like me who started this for health reasons, it's pure sugar. It's just like milled syrup. Okay, like my favorite used to be cane syrup. That was something in the family. My great grandmother used to make cane syrup from sugar cane. And so, but when you are consuming cane syrup, there is zero fiber in it. So that syrup is pure sugar that goes straight into your system. It's absorbed immediately, and all of these things I just mentioned end up happening. Okay. So, it's good to stay away from simple carbs like that. All right. There is another component, though, that some researchers have now dubbed the third fiber, and that is resistant starch. So now we have two official forms of fiber, soluble and insoluble, and then we have the so-called third fiber, which is resistant starch because it acts like a fiber, okay? In your system, it behaves, it functions like fiber. Okay, what is soluble fiber? That's the first one I want to talk about. Soluble fiber easily dissolves in water, and it's broken down into a gel-like substance in the part of the gut known as the colon. Soluble fiber will help in, number one, lowering fat absorption, and that will help with weight management. It's a thick, spread out gel. Okay, so you eat something that's high in soluble fiber, and it breaks down into a gel which coats the lining of your intestines, and that coating will block the absorption of the fat in that food that you ate. Okay, so it has the fiber and it has the fat along with the fiber that was right along with it, and that fiber is going to keep some of that fat from being absorbed. Okay, so now picture, and I love it when Dr. Furman talks about this. He says, picture walnut oil and whole walnuts. If you consume the walnut oil, then it's going to be absorbed 100% into your system. But if you consume a handful of whole walnuts, then the fiber that's also in those walnuts will prevent your body from absorbing all the fat that was in the walnuts. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to say this in normal terms that you and I, non-scientists, non-doctors, can understand. Okay, you enjoyed the walnut. An hour ago, I sat over there and ate about half an ounce of walnuts that I keep in my drawer over there. And I didn't do anything else. I stopped working on this document for a few minutes, and I looked at those walnuts, and I enjoyed every walnut so that I can remember that I did eat my healthy fat today. I enjoyed the flavor of those raw and unsalted walnuts. And I got the enjoyment of it, but in my system, as they're breaking down in my system, the fiber, the soluble fiber in the food that I ate this afternoon is going to make some of the fat from those whole walnuts go right on through me. And so I enjoyed them, but I don't have to have all of the fat from them. That is just the coolest thing, in my opinion. Number 2, soluble fiber is going to help in lowering your cholesterol. Soluble fiber prevents some dietary cholesterol from being broken down and digested. Over time, soluble fiber can help lower cholesterol levels or the amount of free cholesterol in your blood. Okay, so that's another thing that is not going to be digested into your system because that gel is going to stop the cholesterol from going in to your through your colon. Number 3, stabilizing your blood sugar. It's what we were talking about a while ago, your glucose levels. Just as soluble fiber prevents fats from being absorbed, soluble fiber also can slow down the digestion rate of other nutrients, including carbohydrates. Okay, so the blood sugars that we were talking about. This means that meals containing soluble fiber are less likely to cause sharp spikes in your blood sugar levels and may even prevent those spikes. Next, soluble fiber can help reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. These are some of the things I talked about earlier that can be caused by a low fiber diet. So now getting in the fiber can reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by lowering your cholesterol levels, by stabilizing your blood sugars, and by decreasing your fat absorption, 3 things I just mentioned. Regularly eating soluble fiber may reduce the risk of heart disease and other circulatory conditions. And number 5, soluble fiber is going to help to feed your healthy gut bacteria. This is such a cool topic, in my opinion. It's just fascinating to think about what I'm about to tell you right now. Some soluble fiber rich foods feed our gut bacteria as it is fermentable in our colon, and so it helps the bacteria thrive for longer. Now, what bacteria am I talking about here? I'm talking about what we call our gut flora, our gut microbiome, our microbiota. They're not even a part of us. They're guests in our system. They're not part of your actual cells. This is fascinating. Picture your body. Say your body, this is of course not a real number. I'm just making this up. If your body is made up of, say, 1 million cells that are actually who you are, did you know that there are 10 million cells that are guests in your system? They're residents, and you're the host. Your cells are the host. And so we actually are living right now to take care of our residents that live inside of us. I just think that is so fascinating. Okay, so these are our gut bacteria, and we want them, folks. We want the gut bacteria. We want our residents to be happy because they are doing some amazing things inside of us to make us healthy. That's a whole topic on its own, too. I'm just going to mention a couple things here. Okay. The number of bacteria, as I just mentioned, outnumber our own cells 10 to 1. And let's see here. Okay, just said that in the, let's see here, that they have, in the past few decades, researchers have discovered that the number and the type of bacteria can have a profound impact on your health. So not only the number of guests in our system, of residents, but the type of them. We want the good ones, okay? We want to discourage the bad ones, the bad bacteria, and we want to encourage the good bacteria, okay? So now let's move on to insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber does not dissolve in water like soluble fiber does. It is left intact as our food moves through our gastrointestinal tract. Okay, so what does this intact fiber do in our system? Okay, remember, this is not the same thing as soluble fiber. Okay, it prevents constipation, that's one thing, because as an indigestible material, insoluble fiber, as it is in your gastrointestinal tract, it absorbs fluid and it sticks to other byproducts of digestion that are ready to be formed into the stool. So its presence will speed up the movement and the processing of the waste, and it will help prevent gastrointestinal blockage and constipation. It will also help to prevent reduced bowel movements. Now, at this point, I just want to say that most people have experienced constipation at some point. And for me, the first time that I experienced it to a debilitating, I'm just going to go ahead and use that word, it debilitated me, degree, was about 3 months after my first son was born. And I just want to go ahead and tell you right now that with my first son, I did not do what I was supposed to do with my food. This was in 1988, 89, and I did not know any better. And I ended up getting gestational diabetes, and the doctor said, you are developing I was 2 days back at work because I'm a high school teacher, and I was 2 days back, and he said, ma'am, you're developing toxemia. You need to go ahead right now and stop working and stay home until the birth of your baby. And so all that time that I was home, my two best friends at that time were Snickers bars and peanut butter, commercial peanut butter, and Reese's peanut butter cups. I was eating that a lot during the last weeks of my pregnancy. And so I was not getting the fiber. I had no clue at the time what a healthy diet needed to look like. I had no clue. So after Devin was born, that is when the constipation hit me. It wasn't during the pregnancy, it was after. And it was very, very debilitating at about the 3-month mark, which was about Christmas time. And it really took me down. It took me down. And then after that, I developed the hemorrhoids that was talking about, and with the severe constipation. So I also developed something called a pararectal cyst that literally never went away. And my son is almost 30, and it never went away. And it started up after he was born, and after I had that terrible constipation and the hemorrhoids, etc. I know this is TMI, but if you are young, I'm just trying to tell you now that this is all avoidable, okay? All right, so the thing that I want to mention here is that another little image that I had, thinking about insoluble fiber and how it grabs things and takes it out with it. It grabs them and takes it out. Picture your house. Answer this question for me. When was the last time that you took out a bag of garbage? Was it this morning, yesterday, in the past 3 days? Was there any bag of garbage, any amount of garbage in your house that you took out to the can? For me, the truck came this morning, so this morning I took the last 2 bags in the kitchen out to the can, took the garbage out. There were some nasty things in there. There were some cans that I had, some beans or whatever in, and my son's stuff that he does not eat nutritarian, so there were some very strong smelling things, that he had left in there. He had an empty can that he had eaten, I think it was Spam, and so that nasty can was in the garbage can in the kitchen. There's nasty garbage in your bathroom garbage, and then sometimes in the bedrooms. When was the last time you cleaned out the kitty litter box? I cleaned out the kitty litter box yesterday morning, and or that you vacuumed, little things around the house on the floor that you dusted, things that can cause odor and problems in the house. Excess dust can cause asthma. So now let's say that you've done none of that for 6 months. What is the health condition, the health level of your home if you've done none of that? If you never took out a single piece of garbage and it all piled up, the old food, the scraps from your carrots that you peeled this morning to go in your lunch, but the peeling is still sitting there in that garbage can, and last week's peelings and the week before that, and all of the old food is still sitting there in your house for 6 months. Now, picture the metabolic equivalent of that of your body, that you haven't been eating insoluble fiber, and there are things that have been collecting in your system that have not been given an opportunity to get out, okay? Because they're sitting there in your colon, and they're just hardening, and they're remaining, and they're rotting in your system. If you're not getting enough insoluble fiber, that's what's going on in the colon. Things are just sitting there, rotting. So please keep this in mind, that insoluble fiber, foods with insoluble fiber are very important. The second point there is that insoluble fiber can help to lower your risk of diverticular disease, as we said, by preventing constipation, preventing intestinal blockages. Insoluble fiber will help reduce the risk of developing small folds and hemorrhoids in the colon. It may also reduce the risk, as I mentioned, of colorectal cancer. Insoluble fibers will help with that also. Your colon is supposed to be smooth. It's not supposed to have these accordion folds in it. And the more your waste is going on out with like a daily bowel movement, then the smoother and the healthier your colon is going to remain. But the more that food sits in there, it starts developing folds. Okay, so we don't want that. Okay, moving on here. I see my time is just building up here. I'm yakking on and on here. I'm just about done. The third, which is the unofficial fiber called resistant starch, the so-called third fiber, which is resistant starch. It's a starch, but here's the thing about it. It's bound up. It's a starch that's bound up within its fibrous cell walls of the food that has this resistant starch. And by the way, beans are very high in resistant starch. And when it goes through your system, it resists being digested. That is why we call it a resistant starch. It does not want to be digested. So it goes through your stomach. It goes through the small intestine. And what happens? It gets to your colon, your large intestine. And at that point, it is going to be fermentable and it's going to become food for your resident bacteria, food for the guests, your gut microflora, gut flora. Okay. When it reaches the colon. Okay, so it's not food meant for you. It's meant for the visitors that are living in there that we want there. It feeds your friendly gut bacteria, just like water-soluble fiber. Resistant starch will feed the friendly bacteria in your intestine, and it will have a positive effect on the type of bacteria, as well as the number of bacteria. Good and good. Good things. When the bacteria digest the resistant starches and the soluble fibers, they form several compounds, including gases, including short-chain fatty acids, and most notably, the one that has been researched the most is butyrate. 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 Very, very important. I have a great document here, a link to a great website that I would like to recommend on butyrate. Now, ultimately, this website is an advertisement for a company called Atlas Biomed. That has the ability to measure the amount of butyrate and other short-chain fatty acids that your body is generating. But this website does not overplay the ad. They actually mention themselves very, very little. The link is extremely useful. And by the way, it is pro whole food plant-based and totally discourages meat. And you know how paleo people want you to eat butter to get your butyrate because they say there's butyrate in the butter. But this website is going to explain to you how trying to get your butyrate by eating butter, like putting butter in your coffee. What do they call that stuff? Butter in your coffee. I can't think of it right now, but they have a name for it. Is actually you're getting less positive effect from the butyrate that your body is taking in by eating butter than if you will get your let your body make its own butyrate, which it wants to do in the first place. Okay, so I would like to recommend this link from atlasbiomed.com about butyrate. Okay, I also have a link to a meta-analysis done on some of the research conducted so far on prebiotics, the potential benefits of prebiotics on the gut microbiota, and some of the most common foods containing prebiotics. And then another one on a document on how pear pomace can prevent high-fat diet-induced obesity in rats, mainly by improving the structure of your gut microbiota. Another one on from the NIH on the human gut is the natural habitat for a large and dynamic bacterial community, but a substantial part of these bacterial populations are still to be described. However, the relevance and effect of resident bacteria on a host's physiology and pathology has been well documented. And so they have discovered that probiotics and prebiotics are known to have a role in the prevention or treatment of some diseases. And then the final document I have here is another meta-analysis. It's an umbrella review of systematic reviews with meta-analysis of observational studies, etc. And their results were support dietary recommendations that promote high fiber intake as part of a healthy diet. Okay, so that is what I've got here and today, and I'm sorry that this is so long. I think it's going to be about an hour that I've been talking here, but I hope that you were able to listen while you were doing other things, and I hope that this little talk was helpful and really, really encourages you to consider high fiber foods, whole foods, plant-based foods, and staying away from avoiding meat products, dairy products, seafood, poultry products, and processed foods, and commercially prepared foods, and junk food, okay, is what we're encouraging here. So thank you again for joining me. If this was of any help to you, please give this a thumbs up and click like. And that is it. And subscribe to my channel, Plant Rich Sandra. Maybe share it with somebody that you feel might benefit from this. And also, what was the other thing I wanted to say? What is the other thing? Oh, click the notification bell. I've been a lot more active here lately than I was for about a year. So thank you again. And please check out my other videos, okay? This one is like 55 or something. So check out some of the others. Some great information there. Thank you again, and have a great day, everybody. Bye.